if confirmed, I will ensure that staffing the Weather Service offices is its top priority. It's really important.
As Texas is still recovering from yet another once-in-a-lifetime natural disaster, which for some reason seems to be happening more frequently and intensely, Senator Cancun Cruz here led the charge on a confirmation hearing today for the administrator of NOAA, doing his absolute best to pretend that he's not personally responsible for gutting NOAA's budget. But don't worry, that didn't stop the rest of the Democratic senators from mentioning Trump and Cruz's disastrous cuts. Nor did it stop Trump's nominees from agreeing that budget cuts and staffing are the biggest problems the agency faces.
Now, when tragedy strikes, we ask ourselves what could have been done differently. And that's a question that we need to ask. In any crisis, there's an order that things play out. But there's also a process of engaging in a retrospective and saying, what is the exact timeline of what transpired? And what could we have done better?
Every particle in a storm is its own algorithm. And we could be computing this. And we could tell you 2 weeks in advance what the storm is likely to do if we put in the supercomputing time. So I have no idea why in heck our nation lets the European model get ahead of us. I have no idea why we do this when all we need to do is use Senator Blackburn's supercomputing time at their national lab and put the resources behind it. So let's start with that. Should we be putting more resources into supercomputing time so we can predict storms further out?
Well, obviously, high-performance supercomputer, these physics-based algorithms need a lot of it. And one of the priorities of mine is advancing numerical weather prediction. But the reason why one of the reasons why the American model was lagging the European model was not just lack of compute, but the code wasn't architected to run on certain computers.
We're going to let somebody else, I'm not letting somebody else outcode us. Okay, trust me, coming from Seattle, I'm not letting, this is all doable.
Oh,
it's about whether we
agree.
have the resources and the investment. And I'm saying, let's make the investment.
I agree.
And you agree is what I'm trying to get at. You agree. Let's put the investment into this.
High performance computing, cloud-based high performance computing is critically important. Another thing I'd like to point out is once we transition that code to architectures that even industry could run, now we have private industry investing and developing the same code.
Okay, I'm all for that, but I want you to maintain your role. And I think that the difference here is, and we do that. Believe it or not, the University of Washington has probably helped this community plan for an eventual tsunami more than anybody has, because they've outlined. So it comes to the second point, which I just want to drill down on, because somewhere we all collectively have to come to a conclusion about what we are going to do when we have massive populations in communities that you actually have to have an implementation plan. So whose responsibility is that implementation plan? And so we see it all the time because the gap, NOAA says, okay, well, I'm going to give you the information, and then it's a rural community and they don't have the plan. So as I said, University of Washington is filling that gap. So what can we do now that we've had 27 extreme events this year? What can we do to help communities get better plans?
Well, going back to your Weather Service question, if confirmed, I will ensure that staffing the Weather Service offices is its top priority. It's really important for the people to be there because they have relationships with the people in the local community. They're a trusted source. I didn't mean to imply that this was going to be regionalized or anything. As I mentioned,
some people have suggested that the private sector, you could just do it in one location. And I'm just trying to get to this point that this regional data and integration with the emergency responders is critical.
Consolidating the data, not consolidating the people.
Okay,
I would love for the people to be more embedded in the community.
Thank you.
Dr. Jacobs, the Trump administration wants to cut NOAA's budget by 27%. No climate, weather, Sea Grant, Ocean Labs, many other programs exempted. Dr. Jacobs, yes or no, do you support these cuts?
Yes, I support the president's budget.
Dr. Jacobs, do these cuts improve the weather readiness of our country?
The cuts I believe you're referring to, a lot of that work is being transitioned in from the research side to the operations side. So the National Weather Service, the National Ocean Service, their mission essential functions will continue.
I have a disagreement with you. A 27% cut is going to have an impact because there's a definite ripple effect that occurs when that kind of funding is slashed, because of weather readiness without funding is an hallucination. You know, you can't cut something by 27% even as the storms are enhanced as each year goes by without having that additional capacity. So I do not agree with you on that issue.
I understand my colleague asked about the budget cuts, which you said you supported the 27% budget cut to NOAA. Is that correct? So how do you keep your science mission and particularly in atmospheric and oceanic areas? How do you keep that science mission if we're cutting that budget when in reality that's a core part of your mission?
Appreciate the question. It's a lot of these priorities, particularly the weather forecasting and things we've been discussing all day. Some of that's being transferred to the Weather Service. It's my hope for certain things that we're looking at to basically fulfill the mission requirements of the forecasting capabilities, that the Weather Service takes over a lot of that. Some other aspects transferred to the Ocean Service.
Okay, so you think that the missions are going to be preserved, just preserved somewhere else?
Yes, it's my objective to make sure that NOAA fulfills their mission requirements. I
hope that we're not thinking that we're just going to put weather up here in some big, we have this really great way of getting information from the private sector or somehow, and we're not going to play this critical role. I don't know, Mr. Jordan, you're shaking your head or nodding, so I don't know if you have a thought on this, but we can't just shift these resources somewhere else. We have to own them. NOAA has to own them. They have to own weather forecasting. We need it to be better, but we can't transfer some of it out and then say that's somebody else. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide a comment. So I agree. I was shaking my head in agreement with you. Yes, the weather forecasting is very important. America has a robust American private weather industry that really amplifies the work that NOAA does, but it is very important for NOAA to do its weather forecasting mission.
Okay, well, how do we preserve that in a budget?
I believe looking at the budget, again, not at NOAA, looking at it from the outside, I see the Weather Service mission, the line office is preserved.
But what about all the work they do to understand?
Within the Weather Service?
Yes.
The budget, I believe, funds the Weather Service.
Okay, so I'm talking about the R&D office of the Oceanic and that research group.
Understood. Sorry for the confusion. And as Dr. Jacobs said, looking at the budget again, not having the conversations with the folks inside about what's happening, but it looks like the transition of some of that work is happening from OAR to the Weather Service.
Yeah, I think this is where we're probably in. Because that office, the weather research office, is eliminated. So I think what we should do is, I've heard what Dr. Jacobs has said. Look, I think we want to get a clear understanding of this. I think we're in a disagreement on this. I think we like this office, so I don't think we want it to be zeroed out. We think it's the key to NOAA doing its job overall. And, as people talk about killing hurricane hunters, is that correct? Killing hurricane hunters. These are the people that fly into the hurricanes to give us all the information. Why would we kill that? Why would we kill that? So let's get a framework here, and we'll follow up with some questions to both of you on this entire regime and how you think it's going to work. But and I get you're nominees by this administration, so you're going to generally agree with their budget. We disagree with it, but I think more importantly, let's look at these programs that are going to be cut and have an understanding from you, at least, about what you think and how that responsibility is going to get served. Because without it being served, I have serious concerns about our ability to do the job that NOAA's requested to do on forecasting. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, I hate Ted Cruz more than most, given the fact that he's the senator that I have the misfortune of calling mine. And of course, it was Cancun Cruz himself who specifically added language into Trump's big beautiful bill that cuts NOAA's budget by nearly $200 million. Here's the headline from The Guardian. Ted Cruz ensured Trump's spending bill slashed weather forecasting funding. Cruz inserted language into the bill that eliminates a $150 million fund to accelerate advances and improvements in research, observation systems, modeling, forecasting, assessments, and dissemination of information to the public around weather forecasting. A further $50 million in NOAA grants to study climate-related impacts on oceans, weather systems, and coastal ecosystems was also removed. It's insane to me that Ted Cruz is allowed to sit there, curl down his little lip, and pretend to be heartbroken at this tragedy when he just made sure that it's going to happen a lot more frequently. We can go straight to the source for this one, Project 2025. NOAA consists of 6 main offices. Then it lists the offices and says, together, these form a colossal operation that has become one of the main drivers of the climate change alarm industry, and as such is harmful to future U.S. prosperity. This industry's mission emphasis on prediction and management seems designed around the fatal conceit of planning for the unplannable. That is not to say NOAA is useless, but its current organization corrupts its useful functions. It should be broken up and downsized. That is exactly what they're talking about doing here, taking 27% of the budget from NOAA and giving it to another organization who is going to do quote-unquote the same work and uphold the same mission. But that's obviously not true. They're trying to break apart NOAA and make it ineffective. I mean, it's pretty clear to me that the Republican Party, including Cancun Cruz, the man who's got literal blood on his hands at this point, they don't want to support any kind of national weather service. Because one, nationalizing something that has a profit potential is communism. And two, climate change denial has become almost religious for these people, to the point where they're starting to not even want to predict weather anymore. I mean, science is woke, the weather is woke, nothing can be done except by a shadowy government deep state cabal. Thoughts and prayers, we're all going to die, am I right? The Republican Party is a death cult at this point, built on ignorance and greed, and they're trying to bring us all down with them. So stay safe out there, guys, and if you want to stay informed and join a kick-ass community, then you know where to find one, right here at Really American. I'm Tony Hinderman, and I'll catch you next time.